Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined by the beautiful team of Jamsin and Mells, the Damn Fine TV. How you guys doing today?
Wonderful.
I'm doing awesome. So before we get really started and why we're here, I do want to talk about you guys a little bit. First, I want to talk about you a little bit, Jay. You're this way, not that way. And she is an astrologer and podcaster, as well as an avid lover of horror, slasher, psychological creature features, gore, found footage, comedy, and camp. If it's there, she's in, especially Ghost. She loves those guys. So what I don't want to get specific with the movie here, but what really got you to push to start doing Damn Fine TV?
Oh gosh. I mean, this sounds so weird, but I've been a fan of TV since I can remember. Like, I think TV really did most of the legwork in raising me. So I've always wanted to just be able to talk about it more. And I noticed that there was kind of a lack of women talking about television, or at least women getting recognized for talking about television. So that was something that really pushed me. I was a writer for a while. I wrote for an entertainment website, and then I finally just said, screw it, I'm going to do my own podcast. Let's just go for it and see what happens. So yeah.
And I'm really, really glad that you did. So now, obviously with the team, we got to talk about both members of this amazing team. Now, Mells is a Sagittarius. She loves horror and everything about it. The themes, the gore, the special effects, the jump scares. She loves it all. Now, here's the juxtaposition, except Ghost. Fuck those guys. So we've got a lover of Ghost over here, and we got a hater of Ghost down here. So I got to ask, because I've been curious since I wrote this script. Is there a specific reason or a specific moment in your life that made you say, you know what, fuck those ghosts?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So I have a sister, she's 12 years older than me. And when Poltergeist came out, I was not old enough to really be watching that, but she turned it on and it literally scared the shit out of me. And that's why I don't fuck with ghosts. And I have not ever seen Poltergeist in its entirety. I will never watch it. Remakes, whatever they come out with. So yes, it was all because of that movie and my dear darling sister as well. So
I'm gonna be honest with you right now. Your sister sounds like a swell lady.
Yeah.
I think I love her already. So
yeah.
And it's funny because Poltergeist for me is a very special movie for me, because my little sister looked just like Heather O'Rourke when we were kids.
Wow.
Like the long white blonde hair. She'd always wear feety pajamas, and she would always do the "they're here," and I used to scare shit out of me. Like, you're grounded. Go to your room. So I do also want to say, if you want to follow these amazing women and Damn Fine TV and everything that they're doing, you don't have to go far to look for them, because I have all their links right down here in the description. So make sure you're checking them out and everything that they do. So Mells, how did you get connected into Damn Fine TV? How did this become a partnership between the two of you?
Well, we actually met like on a YouTube live, and I think we've come to the consensus that it was either during like season 9 of American Horror Story, or it was season 1 of Castle Rock. So it was one of those horror based television shows. And we were both in the chat, and we just started chatting, and we realized that we pretty much are twin flames. I mean, we love all the same things. We just are into it all together. Jasmine asked me to guest co-host or a guest spot on her pod for one of those American Horror Story episodes, and we've kind of been inseparable ever since. It's been like 3 years. We've been going strong almost. So yeah,
it's amazing. And I actually found you guys because of Stranger Things. So it's amazing how, all these connections can be made. And I agree with you, like just from live streaming on YouTube, all the different connections that I've made, just friends that I've made, and networking that I've been able to do. So the crazy thing about a horror podcast or doing a horror anything is you can't just start it without having a knowledge of horror and horror starting for you somewhere. So now, ladies, I want to go back to the past, and I want to talk about how horror started for you, your first horror movie. Jasmine, I started with you last time, so this time, Mells, I'm going to start with you. Your first horror movie was?
My official first horror movie was Halloween 1978, the classic Halloween. So I got over the trauma of horror movies after my sister did that to me in the late 80s. And I really wanted to see like H2O, Halloween 20 years later. And this was like really starting my like I guess introduction into horror. I had not seen Scream yet. I had not seen a lot of these movies that were like really big horror classics or becoming on the scene or whatever. So
Sure.
my mother, and I guess my sister and I both get our macabre sense of life from her because she loves Stephen King. I started reading Stephen King because of her. But when I told her, Mom, I want you to take me to see this movie, she was like, wait a minute, you haven't seen any of the Halloween movies. And I was like, I don't know. I just like, this looks creepy. I want to see it. And so we went down to the video store and rented a VHS of Halloween 1978. And I was like hooked. There were no ghosts, so that was a good thing. But everything about Michael Myers and that creepy, stalky vibe, the synthesizer music, the cutaways, like I've got like goosebumps right now thinking about it. But like it just I was really into it. And so we watched all of the Halloweens, the good, the bad, the uglies, the ones that don't even go with it. We went to see the movie and I have just been obsessed with horror ever since then. Immediately after that, I watched Scream. And then immediately after that, I got into Nightmare on Elm Street. So yeah, that was my jumping off point for horror. And I've been in love with it ever since. So
She should have let you watch H2O first. That way you could have started with the best one and then moved on from there.
Honestly, I'm so glad you said that. I stand the 20 years later movie. It's great.
It's the best one in the franchise, and the franchise should have ended at the end of that. It shouldn't have done the stupid
Resurrection.
it was a medic under the mask. Like,
yes,
come the fuck
resurrection.
out. He literally sat up. He did the Michael sit up after you're gonna tell me that was a paramedic doing the Michael Myers sit up on the road. Get out of here with that shit.
I can't. I know. But we needed to see Busta Rhymes use his taekwondo to take down Michael Myers. So I guess we just needed all of that.
You and I have a very, very, very different definition of what we need in life. I just want to throw that out there real quick. Like, our needs are extremely different in what we need in our life.
Low. So, my bar is low. Okay, yeah.
People always ask me, like, who would win a fight between Jason and Michael Myers? I'm like, Busta Rhymes took out Michael Myers. Don't even put these two in the same sentence, okay? Like, get that right out of here. I don't even want to hear that, okay? So we know that Halloween started your journey into the horror genre, but now, Jasmine, I would love to know how horror started for you. Now, these are complete opposites, but I do want to make an amazing connection once we get to that point. So, Jasmine, your first horror movie was?
Yeah, my first horror movie was The Birds. And I don't have as great of a story as you do, Mells, because I really just remember the movie, and I don't think that from there it was a never-ending love because I was so young. Like, I really think I was 6 or 7. So I think I was watching it like through the slats in the stairwell, and then my mom saw me and was like, all right, come on down. You can watch it with us. We'll see how you handle it. And I did not handle it well. Like, I'm still very afraid of birds to this day, but I wouldn't change that for anything because obviously it did spark something inside of me that eventually led me to love horror. So yeah, The Birds. I would love to hear what this connection is, though.
I know, me too.
Well, here's my thing, and this is just opinion, guys. There's no basis of fact here. You have Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, and Alfred Hitchcock, obviously one of the more, in my opinion, when it comes to mainstream movies, underrated writers, directors of all time. In the horror community, he's loved. But without Alfred Hitchcock, we wouldn't have The Birds. We wouldn't have Rope. We wouldn't have Psycho. Without Psycho, we wouldn't have Halloween 1978. Psycho, for me, is the direct reference on how to do a slasher. And that was the direct reason. For me, slasher started with Psycho. And then you got your Black Christmas. And then you got your Halloween. And then you got like Friday the 13th. It was like, I'm going to take the best parts of Psycho and the best parts of Halloween, and I'm going to mash them together. I'm going to have a killer mom, but I'm going to eventually have the most badass kid that could take Michael out anyway. But without Alfred Hitchcock, who obviously, like I said, did Birds, did Rope, did Psycho, you would have never had Halloween. And I'm not just saying that because it's a slasher. Halloween and Psycho are two movies that, even if you're not a horror fan, and even if you've never seen either of these movies, you know,
Yeah,
and you know the Halloween piano, you know these things. And even if you've never seen a horror movie, even if you've never seen these specific horror movies, you know those scores. And John Carpenter is, to me, was the modern in the 80s, 78 to 80s. He was the Alfred Hitchcock of that time, with his ability to make a creative slasher with an amazing score and really keep people on the edge of their seats for the whole time. So I think without Birds, we would not have gotten the Alfred Hitchcock explosion that we did get, which would eventually lead to what we have in horror now, to the point where Halloween is still kicking ass now. And you look at Psycho. They did a remake of Psycho with Vince Vaughn, and everybody shits on the movie like, oh, it's terrible. It's the exact same thing. Yeah. It's scene for scene what the original was, but the original is so goddamn perfect. They couldn't change anything about it. They were like, look, we're just gonna fucking do it again with Vince Vaughn. That's all we're gonna do, you know. And people are like, I hate it. I'm like, how? It's the same damn thing. Like, I'll give it to you. Maybe Vince Vaughn isn't as, you know, flamboyant and amazing as Anthony. Sure, I'll give you that. You know, Perkins killed that role, but they're the same script, guys. They literally handed him the Psycho script. It was like, hey, just read it. Just do the damn thing, man. You can do this.
People really hang on to the originals of things, right? And like, I can understand they hold a special place in your heart, but sometimes we gotta give the remake a little more credit.
Absolutely.
And for more reasons than one, too, when it comes to that. And that is also something. Remakes is something we'll be talking about here in a second, but we know how old you ladies were when you seen your first horror movies, and we know who you were with. But now, I started with you last time, Mel, so I'm going to bounce over to you, Jasmine. A lot of times when we watch our first horror movie, there are certain scenes that just mutilate us. They tear us apart, they traumatize us, or what have you. So I'd like to know, from Birds, which scene was it that affected you the most?
Yeah, it's got to be the scene where all the school children are running away and they're just being attacked by the birds, right? I mean, I think probably it has to do with the fact that I was similar in age to all of those kids running away, so it felt like, oh shit, this could be me. Like, I could be getting attacked by the birds. And I think as a kid too, it felt like it went on forever, that scene, and I felt like there was no refuge for these kids, and that felt so scary to me. And then the little girl that falls and like her glasses break, I remember just thinking like, oh, now she can't even see what she's doing. This is so sad, just adding like insult to injury of the whole thing. So it's got to be that one, and probably the whole lead up too. I mean, her Tippi Hedren, what's the character's name, Melanie, I believe, just sitting outside while all those birds are collecting behind her. Yeah, like whoever does PR for crows as a bird, like Murder of Crows is the exact right name they should have gone with. So perfect.
Right. And I do want to say real quick, because I just imagined a little Jay sitting in front of her TV going on My Girl, like, her glasses, she can't see without her glasses.
Totally.
I thought it
too. That's all I heard when you said that. I just see the little girl in My Girl. So we talk about effective scenery, and with Halloween, obviously, there is no lack of a better term. I mean, it's just effective scenes that are still iconic to this day in that film. But I want to know, because with Halloween, we all love the kills. As horror fans, we love the kills. Which kill from Halloween, I don't want to say favorites, that's really weird, but which kill stuck with you the most, Mells, from Halloween?
Oh gosh. I mean, throughout the whole franchise or just the first movie?
No, just 78.
Oh, good. Okay. I'm gonna be honest. I think the hardest one or the one that I still sometimes when I'm trying to go to sleep at night, it will pop into my head. But it is when he comes in on, I believe it's Susie, but like he's got the
Bob.
Yeah, he's already killed Bob and he's got the sheet on. And there's something also a little, this is where my morbid side comes in, but a little funny about that scene also, because he just picks the phone up and like hangs it up. And I'm like, you're like, stay focused, Michael. You're here to do a job. Right. Like, you don't need to worry about running the minutes up on the phone. But that was very like brutal. And I mean, I did just see him stab a guy through the heart and he was hanging off of the pantry door. So, I mean, it's not like there was just something very creepy about how long it drug out. Like all of the other kills seemed to be fairly quick. And then this one was a little slow burn building up to when he kills her. So
Yeah.
that's got to be the one for me.
And I respect it. I love it. And right after that, you got the spot where he decorates the house with everybody, you know.
Yes.
So like you get that on top of it. You know, you got a young lady watching this, like, wow, this guy's in a sheet killing people. Fuck them ghosts. And now I gotta watch him scatter them all over the house. So
Right. I mean, yeah, just stuff Annie right up in the laundry, closet or whatever. So yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, but
yeah. No, and it's amazing because Halloween, like I said, while it is not even probably in my top 5 favorite horror franchises, the continuity to me just bounces all over the place. I wouldn't have some of my favorite horror franchises were it not for Halloween.
Right.
Growing up, I was spoiled, and I grew up in a video store. My parents owned a mom and pop video store growing up, so I had,
Lucky.
movies at my hands. Yeah, I was very lucky, very blessed. And to me, I started with, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Child's Play. And then I watched the first Halloween and I was like, this is fucking boring. Like,
Yeah.
I gotta watch, you're gonna make me watch William Shatner walk around stabbing people with a knife. Like, give me something here, guys. And I mean, I got boobies at the beginning. So as a little boy, I was like, ooh, I like where this is going. And I was like, oh, can we go back to the boobies?
Yeah.
But the older I've gotten, the more I've actually come to realize that I think Michael might be the scariest of all the villains, because while Freddy is this dream demon and Jason is this, huge brute that was brought back by the Necronomicon, Michael's just a guy. Like he could be your next door neighbor that just snapped and went crazy and was a huge Star Trek fan and put on his William Shatner mask and just went out, started killing people. Like, that's fucking terrifying, man. Like, that is so scary to think about. Like, your next door neighbor just going crazy. How well do we know the people that live next to us? Like, that's the ending tale for me on Halloween. So now here for a second, guys. Jay, I'm gonna ask you a question. And usually I've got my buddy Ghostface here to ask, but they're filming Scream 6 right now. He's on set, so I can't have him ask you. So I gotta ask.
Dang.
And Mells, you're gonna get to be a cheater pumpkin eater, because usually when I ask this question, I only have one guest here and they have to answer it right out the seat of their pants. But Mells, you're gonna get to sit here and think about this. Jay, you have to answer right on the seat of your pants. So like I said, usually my buddy Ghostface is here, so I'll try to be my Ghostface here for a second. What's your favorite scary movie, Jasmine?
Oh my God.
What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Oh, I was so nervous for that. That's a much easier question. Okay. I mean, okay. Maybe it's not so easy. I was gonna go with Scream, but I think that more recently X has kind of nudged that out of its spot. I have not stopped thinking about X since I saw it. I wake up every day and start thinking about it. It was so well done and so captivating, and I love the character. I can't wait to see Pearl, and if they end up doing a sequel, or because Pearl's going to be the prequel, so if they do the sequel, I want more of this character, this world. It was just awesome.
Yeah. I'm telling you, man, like, I have a weird relationship with this movie because I think it's great. I think that, don't get me wrong, I think the movie's great. The villain is fantastic. The kills were amazing. But my wife and we drove halfway, 2.5 hours to meet up with a friend of ours to watch this movie. And I go into these movies blind most of the time. Like, I don't watch trailers.
Yeah.
I think it ruins a lot for me. So we meet up with this girlfriend of ours and we go in to see X, and I'm sitting there watching it and I was like, man, I wonder if Anna thinks we're trying to like put her into a 3-way or something. Like,
oh my God.
like halfway through the movie, I was like, I didn't know. Like, it's fun. I like it, but please don't think ill of us. This is not the intention that hey, you want to go watch X with us and see what happens afterwards? I don't know. But I agree with you. I'm very, very excited for Pearl. I think the X, again, when you talk to a mainstream audience, it's not going to get the love I feel like it deserves.
Yeah.
But it really did transport me back to watching movies as a kid, with how brilliant it was. And, even Scott Mescudi, Kid Cudi, seeing him in there, like, he was so good. Like, he played that role so great. And it just like, it really made me feel like I was watching a late 70s, early 80s horror movie again. And I'm very, very excited for Pearl. I'm very excited to see the direction they go. I love the fact that Mia Goth got to play such a wide range of characters throughout this film. polar
Yes.
opposites
Yes.
on the spectrum.
She's
And
fantastic.
she's captivating. She's
Yeah.
beautiful. She's strong, and horror has always been ahead of the curve when it comes to social issues like that, with having women in front of
Yes.
the camera, women behind the camera, women beating the fuck out of men. You got your final girl. And now the more it goes, we're getting even more powerful women that are doing amazing things in the horror world. Like, look at what they just did with Candyman. I mean, Nia
Oh,
DaCosta, the direction of that movie was the cinematography, the direction. I wasn't a huge fan of the film as a horror film. As a movie, it was fucking phenomenal.
yeah.
And I can't wait for her to finish doing her Marvel stuff and come back and give me some more Nia DaCosta original horror. Like, I'm so amped to see what she can do. And I just love that horror has always been so inclusive to everybody, whether it
Yeah.
was 78 when you have Jamie Lee beating the shit out of Michael Myers, or now Mia Goth killing people and defending people in the same movie, because that's the range that this young lady has as an actor. So I love it. I love X, and I could do a whole episode on that. But first, I got to find out what Mel's favorite scary movie is. What's your favorite scary movie, Mel's? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
This is actually very difficult. I'm just gonna go with the first one that popped up into my head because it's not the first horror movie I ever watched, but once I got into horror, I super got into these particular films, but the Hellraiser series. I have to say I haven't seen anything like that. It's like so specific and unique to itself, and I could watch Hellraiser movies like every single day. There's something alluring. There's like some sensualness to it. I mean, just the whole idea of what they were doing with the blood sacrifices and I could go on and on, but I really think that one of my most watched or rewatched like films would be Hellraiser, and then after that would be like Dream Warriors from Nightmare on Elm Street. But there was something very impactful about the Hellraiser movies. It's just not like anything I had seen when I first saw them, and I don't think I've seen anything really for me that has put me to that level. So
Demons to some, angels to others.
Oh my God. And
I love it.
Again, I have such a complicated relationship with the first Hellraiser movie, because when I first watched it, and I always explain this, and for repeat viewers, I'm so sorry you got to hear me keep saying this, but when I was a young boy, back when I was your age, we didn't have these fancy square boxes to watch YouTubes on. So our YouTube was walking up and down the aisle of the video store, looking at the cases, trying to determine which case looked the best to you. And seeing Hellraiser, I'm like, oh shit, he'll tear your soul apart. Like, that's literally the tagline on the movie. Like, he'll tear your soul apart. Fuck, this guy's gonna be the best slasher I've ever seen. I gotta watch this right now. He's got nails in his fucking face. So I take it and I watch it, and the first Hellraiser is the opposite of a slasher. Like, it's
Right.
not a slasher in the term of, you could make the argument that she is a slasher. She's bringing men in the house to kill them and,
Sure.
sacrifice them to her lover. But, as a young boy, a lot of this was, I was like, it's a love story. Like, I didn't totally grasp the how big the scale of this movie was, and the romance and the love, and like, oh my gosh, like, it's such a powerful, sensual movie. And like,
Yeah.
just like Candyman, like
I was
Candyman
just
is the
about to say.
same way. Like, I watched that as a kid and I was like, ooh, this is scary. That boy got his wee cut off in the bathroom. I'm not about that.
Yeah.
But like, the love, like, he loves Helen so much, and like, it's such a sensual, loving thing. And like, I watch it and I'm like, God, this is so fucking romantic. And people are like, you talking about the guy with bees in his mouth, right? Like,
Yeah,
that's what we're
we
talking
are.
about, bee mouth guy. And I'm like, yeah, bro, he's romantic.
We're talking
Get
about
your
him
shit
and
together.
Pinhead, okay? Two of the
Yeah.
leading, most romantic people in all cinema, okay?
A waste of good suffering. Like, oh
Yes.
God, that
Ah.
kicked off. I think as a little boy, I was like, I want to wear one of those black suits. Like, that would be quite neat. Like, that really affected me later in life.
Right, yeah.
So I know what your guys' favorite horror movies were. I know what your first horror movies were, but now I'm going to throw a little bit of a weird question to each of you. So earlier I talked about how we would be talking about remakes. Now I'm going to split this up into two different questions. The first one goes to you, Jay. Would you like to see Birds remade today?
Ooh, That's really tough because I think something that I really like about the original is the constraints that they kind of had to work under. Like there wasn't a bunch of computer graphics that they could work with at the time, right? So what was created was very, I think, like a technical masterpiece of sorts. And I don't know how they would match that today without making it too modern, I guess. But sure, like why not? Just give me more horror, basically. Like, yeah, sure.
If it came out, I would definitely watch it.
Yeah,
for sure.
agreed.
And now before I get into my spiel about remakes, Mel's obviously with Halloween, we did have a remake with Rob Zombie.
Yes.
Did you watch Rob Zombie's Halloween? And if so, are you a fan?
I did watch it, and I want to raise awareness out here. I try very hard not to gatekeep my horror. And what I mean by that is like there are certain horror movies that I shudder when I think about the possibility of a remake. I still give it the chance and whatnot, but I try to be very open-minded. So I have to put a caveat on that, though, and tell you that I love Rob Zombie films. I love House of a Thousand Corpses, Devil's Rejects, Lords of Salem. Listen, I've seen them all. I love them all. So I didn't hate what he did with Halloween. I understand a lot of people were not really into giving Michael this backstory, humanizing him, because we were pretty removed from because he was a very silent stalker in a William Shatner mask, right? Like giving him the backstory puts a lot of humanization on it, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of people just don't want that. I enjoyed Halloween. Now, Halloween 2 was a little bit, I watched it and I own it in digital media, but it's not one that I immediately go to. So yeah, I've got to love hate because I love Rob Zombie. I like the creative efforts he took, but is it necessarily like my cup of tea? I'm going to be controversial yet brave and say that I've actually really liking the reboot with Halloween and this 3 with Halloween Kills and Ends. I'm really enjoying what they're doing with this. So I guess it just kind of depends on what creative licenses they're taking with the character. So
you're a lot kinder than me because I think Halloween Rob Zombies was not good. And I'm the opposite. I'm not a Rob Zombie fan. Look, I respect it. And if somebody's out there making art, I genuinely hope somebody loves it. I hope that there's somebody out there that loves it, except for The Exorcist 2. That's a huge pile of shit.
Terrible.
But besides that, I hope that if somebody's making art, that there's somebody that appreciates it. But I couldn't tell you if you took Michael's mask off of him, I couldn't tell you the difference between Rob Zombie's Halloween and The Devil's Rejects. You know, they're the same movie to me.
I agree. I do not disagree. Yeah.
I again, the humanizing bothers me because that's like Freddy coming and being like, I'm not bad, I'm misunderstood. Ha! You know, like, no, you're bad. You're just a bad dude. So again, what I was gonna say about remakes is even if there's a remake that comes out that I'm not a fan of, or a reboot, a requel, whatever have you, what good thing that this can do. And if you look at Halloween 78 or Halloween 2018, this is proof in the pudding. The sales of Halloween 78 went up like 38% when Halloween 2018 was released. So even if you do have a really bad requel, remake, sequel, prequel, doesn't matter. It can introduce a younger audience to a movie they had never seen before, and it can bring more awareness to Halloween 78. The new Exorcist that's coming out. I'm very excited to see what that does for sales on the original Exorcist. And like The Birds, I would love to see a newer audience go back and rewatch The Birds and see how their special effects was literally like blue screen, green screen stuff, putting computer animated little birds on there. Like it wasn't a lot. Like you said, they didn't have the CGI abilities that we have today.
It was even called yellow screen, I think.
Yellow
I don't
screen.
think they had green screen then.
I believe it was. And no, I do agree though. There are certain films, Jaws, don't touch it. Leave it alone. Don't ever touch it. Don't even look at it. Don't even look in its direction. We already got Jaws 2, 3, and The Revenge. Okay, you ruined it enough. Don't give me a sequel or any more remakes. I don't need it. So ladies, I do want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for coming out and spending time on your day to come out and hang out with me and talk about your horror experiences. So before I let you go, we always end these with the same question. We're going to go back to your first horror movies. And what we're going to do is we're going to rank these on a skull count. Now, here's the rub. We're not ranking these on acting, production, score, direction, none of the above. What we're doing here is strictly ranking these movies on how much they affected you on first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. This time, Mells, I'll start with you. What would your ranking of Halloween 1978 be?
Oh, it's a 5 all the way. I mean, it checked all the boxes for me. And yeah, so it was definitely a 5.
I'm not going to argue with you. I did that for a lot of people. So
Yeah.
what about you, Jay? What would you say, birds, 0 to 5 skulls? What would your ranking be?
I have to also give it a 5. I mean, it has stuck with me for this long. The fact that I can remember specific scenes after I've really only ever rewatched it once. So to remember it that vividly from, almost 30 years ago, yeah, it's 5.
What I love about this is like when people, the conspiracy theorists are like birds or cameras. I was like, Alfred Hitchcock disagrees, motherfucker. So I don't want to hear what you gotta say. I did say this at the top, guys, but I do want to send you that reminder now because we're at the end of the 3rd act. The credits are about to roll and that curtain's about to drop. But before it does, there's some links down here that are going to need your click, and there's some podcasts that need some subscribing to and some social medias that need following. So make sure you guys are doing that so you can stay up to date with these ladies and everything they have coming up in the future, because I promise you, you're not going to want to miss it. I was able to catch a couple of their lives, and that's how we got introduced, and that's how we started doing this. And I'm so glad that I did, because they're hardworking ladies that really want to hone their craft. And a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that goes on, a lot of the guys, we get a lot of credit for. Like, man, you're editing, you're blah, 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 it's awesome. And then you talk to women like, oh my God, they're pretty. Listen, they do their work. They work just as hard as anybody else in the world. So make sure that you are showing them some love. Check out their work. I promise you, you will not regret it. Ladies, please don't go anywhere. I have a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, as always, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.